Hi, I am Sergio and welcome to Animo Teach. Are you ready for today's lesson? In this video, I am going to teach you about the discussion section of a research paper and how to write it properly. Sound interesting to you? Let's dive into it. Today we're going to talk about the discussion section of a research paper. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to appreciate the importance of discussion section. Write the discussion section with appropriate organization, structure, and content, and identify what to avoid in writing the discussion section. Let's go to the definition. The discussion section of a research paper interprets the results of a research. It is here that the findings are woven together and the major issues or themes are identified and discussed. The purpose of the discussion is to interpret and describe the significance of your findings in light of what was already known about the research problem being investigated and to explain any new understanding or insights that emerged as a result of your study of the problem. It intends to convey what the findings of the study mean and hence has been likened to the closing arguments put forth by counselors in a court case in the last chance for a researcher or an author to sell his paper. The discussion will always connect to the introduction by way of the research question or questions and hypotheses you posed and the literature you reviewed, but the discussion does not simply repeat or rearrange the first parts of your paper. The discussion clearly explains how your study advanced the reader's understanding of the research problem from where you left them at the end of your review of prior research. Importance. The discussion section is often considered the most important part of your research paper because this is where you most effectively demonstrates your ability as a researcher to think critically about an issue, to develop creative solution to problems based upon a logical synthesis of the findings, and to formulate a deeper, more profound understanding of the research problem under investigation. The discussion section is an important part of the research paper that allows the researchers to showcase the study. It is used to interpret the results for readers, describe the virtues and limitations of the study, discuss the theoretical and the practical implications of the research work done, and provide important take-home message. In this section, you present the underlying meaning of your research, note possible implications in other areas of study, and explore possible improvements that can be made to further develop the concerns of your research. Highlight the importance of your study and how it can contribute to understanding the research problem within the field of study. State how the findings from your study revealed and helped fill gaps in the literature that had been previously exposed or adequately described, and engage the reader in thinking critically about issues based upon an evidence-based interpretation of findings. It is not governed strictly by objective reporting of information. Now let's go to the writing of the discussion section. First, let's have the objectives. Reiterate the research problem or state the major findings. Briefly reiterate the research problem or problems you are investigating and the methods you used to investigate them. Then move quickly to describe the major findings of the study. You should write A direct, declarative, and succinct in proclamation of the study results, usually in one paragraph. Explain the meaning of the findings and why they are important. Consider the likelihood that no one has thought as long and hard about your study as you have. Systematically explain the underlying meaning of your findings and state why you believe they are significant. After reading the discussion section, you want the reader to think critically about the results. You don't want to force the reader to go through the paper multiple times to figure out what it all means. If applicable, begin this part of the section by repeating what you consider to be your most significant or unanticipated finding first, then systematically review each finding. Otherwise, follow the general order you reported the findings in the results section. Next, relate the findings to similar studies. No study in all fields is so novel or possesses such a restrictive focus that it has absolutely no relation to previously published research. The discussion section should relate your results to those found in other studies, particularly if questions raised from prior studies serve as motivation for your research. This is important because comparing and contrasting the findings of other studies helps to support the overall importance of your results, and it highlights how and in what ways your study differs from other research about the topic. Note that any significant or unanticipated finding is often because there was no prior research to indicate the finding could occur. If there is prior research to indicate this, you need to explain why it was significant or unanticipated. Next, consider alternative explanation of the findings. It is important to remember that the purpose of research in different fields is to discover and not to prove. When writing the discussion section, you should carefully consider all possible explanations for the study results, rather than just those that fit your hypothesis or prior assumptions and biases. This is especially important when describing the discovery of significant or unanticipated findings. Next, acknowledge the study's limitations. It is far better for you to identify and acknowledge your study limitations than to have them pointed out by your teacher. Note any unanswered questions or issues your study did not address and describe the generalizability of your results to other situations. If a limitation is applicable to the method chosen to gather information, then describe in detail the problems you encountered and why. Lastly, make suggestions for further research. You may choose to conclude the discussion section by making suggestions for further research. Although your study may offer important insights about the research problem, this is where you can address other questions related to the problem that remain unanswered or highlight previously hidden questions that were revealed as a result of conducting your research. You should frame your suggestions by linking the need for further research to the limitations of your study or linking to critical issues revealed from the data that were not considered initially in your research. Now let's go to the general rules. There are the These are the general rules you should adopt when composing your discussion of the results. First, do not verbose or repetitive. Be concise and make your points clear. The discussion section should be written in a focused manner, getting straight to answering the research question raised in the introduction section. Such a direct approach is likely to make a lasting impression on the minds of the readers, and avoid the use of jargon or undefined technical language. Follow a logical stream of thought. In general, interpret and discuss the significance of your findings in the same sequence. You describe them in your results section. A notable exception is to begin by highlighting an unexpected result or finding in order to grab the reader's attention. while other sections require orderly and simple logical writing. Composing discussion section requires logical thinking, reflection, and critical appraisal. A well-written discussion section includes a statement of important results, reference to previously published, relevant literature, comparison of study results with previously reported findings, explanation of results, elucidation of strengths and weaknesses of the study, interpretation of the whole evidence, description of impact of the study, and recommendations for the future course of action. Use the present verb tense especially for established facts. However, refer to specific works or prior studies in the past tense. As with most other sections, active voice should predominate, though a mix of active voice with a few sentences and passive voice are welcome. If needed, use subheadings to help organize your discussion or to categorize your interpretation into themes. Now let's go to organization and structure. Think of your discussion as an inverted pyramid. Organize the discussion from the general to the specific, linking your findings to the literature, then to theory, then to practice, if appropriate. Begin by briefly restating the research problem you were investigating and answer all the research questions underpinning the problem that you posed in the introduction. This is an acceptable reiteration, as the introduction and discussion section are separated by other sections. In addition, the discussion section should be written in a focused manner, getting straight to answering the research question based in the introduction section. Describe the patterns, principles, and relationships shown by each major finding and place them in proper perspective. While describing the gist of the results, the researchers must include all important observations. They must report on the primary outcome, irrespective of the fact whether these are in line with the stated hypothesis or not. A good discussion section includes analysis of any unexpected findings. This part of the discussion should begin with the description of the unanticipated finding, followed by a brief interpretation as to why you believe it appeared and, if necessary, if its possible significance in relation to the overall study. Most researchers prefer to begin this section by providing a summary of the key findings in the study. Such a summary offers context to the debates and arguments that follow. In addition, there are readers who are after reading the title, those who do not read the methodology or the results section, but straight away go to the discussion section to find out the implications of the study findings. These readers need to be provided with a gist of results to enhance their understanding of the discussion. The next part of the discussion should be devoted to interpreting the results, citing the strengths and limitations of the study, and listing the implications of the study findings in the light of whole evidence. This should begin with comparing and contrasting the study results with those of other relevant studies. However, it is advisable for researchers to desist from providing a detailed critique of each and every study on the topic. The researchers can then describe how the study was unique or different and what were strengths and limitations of the study. The strengths could be related to objectives of the study, participant characteristics, or conduct of study. Many newly initiated researchers tend to shy away from listing limitations in the study, thinking that if they point out weaknesses in their study, the probability of the research paper being rejected would be higher. This is far from the truth. It is well to remember that no study is perfect and that every study has one or the other limitation. After having presented the whole evidence from the previous studies and the current study, and having critically analyzed the study quality in terms of limitation and strengths, they then need to discuss the generalizability or the validity and applicability of the study findings. While reporting on these aspects, care should be taken to ensure that the conclusions are based on the study data and the importance of the study is not exaggerated. The last paragraph of the section should showcase the study, stating clearly whether the study findings support the hypothesis or not. The authors or the researchers can also list the new questions and controversies raised by the study and explore implications of the study findings for the other concerns and future research. Now let's go to the content. Generally, the length of the discussion section should not exceed the sum of other sections, like introduction, material, methods, and results. And it should not be completed within 6 to 7 paragraphs. Each paragraph should not contain more than 200 words, and hence, words should be counted repeatedly. It also depends on the number of research questions. If you are planning to publish your research paper in the future, you should really secure the total number of words and paragraphs being required by your target publication. The discussion section can be generally divided into three separate paragraphs as introductory paragraph, intermediate paragraph, and concluding paragraph. Introductory paragraph. It contains the main idea of performing the study in question. Without repeating introduction section of the manuscript, the problem to be addressed and its updated references are analyzed. The introductory paragraph starts with an undebatable sentence and proceeds with the part addressing the following questions as on what issue we must concentrate, discuss, or elaborate. What solutions can be recommended to solve this problem? What will be the new, different, and innovative issue? And how will our study contribute to the solution of this problem? Intermediate paragraph. Herein, your findings rather than those of the other researchers are discussed. The previous studies can be an explanation or reinforcement of your findings. Each paragraph should contain opinions in favor or against the topic discussed, critical evaluations, and learning points. In this paragraph, the main topic should be emphasized without going into much detail. Its place and importance among other studies should be indicated. However, during this procedure, studies should be presented in a logical sentence. Besides, asking the following questions and searching their answers in the same paragraph will facilitate writing process of the paragraph. Can the discussed result be false or inadequate? Why is it false? What meaning does this outcome convey? And the third one is concluding paragraph. In the last paragraph of the discussion section, strong points of the study should be mentioned using constrained and not too strongly assertive statements. Indicating limitations of the study will reflect objectivity of the researchers and provide answers to the questions which will be directed by the reviewers of the research paper. On the other hand, in the last paragraph, future directions or potential applications may be emphasized. This management approach for intermediate paragraph is called divide and conquer tactics. Accordingly, the findings of the study are determined in order of their importance, and a paragraph is constructed for each finding. Each paragraph begins with an indisputable introductory sentence about the topic to be discussed. The sentence basically can be answered to the question, what have we found? Then a sentence associated with the subject matter to be discussed is written. Subsequently, in the light of the current literature, this finding is discussed, new ideas on the subject are revealed, and the paragraph ends with a concluding remark. What to avoid in writing the discussion section? First, do not waste time restating results. Should you need to remind the reader of a finding to be discussed, use bridge sentences that relate the result to the interpretation. An example would be in the case of determining available housing to single women with children in rural areas of Manila, the findings suggest that access to good schools is important. Then move on to further explaining this finding and its implications. Second, recommendations for further research can be included in either the discussion or conclusion of your research or research paper, but do not repeat your recommendations in both sections. Think about the overall narrative flow of your paper to determine where best to locate this information. However, if your findings raise a lot of new questions or issues, consider including suggestions for further research in the discussion section. Next, do not introduce new results in the discussion section. Be wary of mistaking the reiteration of a specific finding for an interpretation because it may confuse the reader. The description of findings or results and the interpretation of their significance or discussion should be distinct sections of your paper. If you choose to combine the results section and the discussion section into a single narrative, you must be clear in how you report the information discovered, and your own interpretation of each finding. This approach is not recommended if you lack experience writing a good research paper. Use of the first person pronoun is generally acceptable. Using first person singular pronouns can help emphasize a point or illustrate a constructive finding. However, keep in mind that too much use of the first person can distract the reader from the main points. And here are my references. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.